The ambassador stood alone in the center of the Galactic Council chamber. Her name was and she had served her people for 300 years. She had never felt so small, so helpless, so afraid. Her skin, which normally glowed with soft blue light, had turned pale and gray. This was the color of shame among her people. This was the color of desperation. Around her sat the representatives of the most powerful species in the known galaxy. Though with their hard shells and clicking mandibles, the Sylvans, beings made of living crystal that hummed when they spoke. The scaled and cold, their eyes watching everything with ancient patience. These were the species that controlled trade routes, commanded vast fleets, and decided the fate of worlds. I had come to beg them for help. The Dominion had attacked her people without warning. Their warships had appeared in space 3 weeks ago, and since then, 4 colony worlds had fallen. Millions of her people were dead. Millions more were trapped on there, waiting for the end. They did not negotiate. They did not take prisoners. They simply destroyed everything in their path and moved on to the next target. "We asked the Council for military assistance," said. Her voice was steady, but inside she was breaking. "The fleet numbers over 800 warships. Our own defenses have been shattered. Without help, our will fall within days." The delegate made a sound that his translator rendered as mild amusement. "They chose neutrality when they had the chance to join the alliance. You refused our protection treaties. You said you wanted to remain independent." He clicked his mandibles together. "Independence has a price, Ambassador." "We were wrong," admitted. The words burned in her throat, but she said them anyway. "We were foolish. We thought we could avoid the conflicts of others. Please, we are asking now. We will accept any terms." The Sylvan representative hummed thoughtfully. "Our fleets are committed to defending Alliance territories. We cannot spare ships for a non-member species. The logistics alone would take months to arrange." "We do not have months, we have days." "Then perhaps you should have thought of that before refusing our offers of membership," they said. "The Council has no obligation to save those who would not save themselves." I looked around the chamber, searching for any sign of sympathy, any hint that someone might speak in her favor. She saw none. The great powers of the galaxy watched her with indifference, with pity, with barely concealed contempt. Her people would die, and these beings would do nothing. They would watch from their safe worlds and shake their heads at the tragedy, and then they would forget that had ever existed. "Is there no one?" she asked. Her voice cracked. "Is there no species in this entire galaxy willing to help us?" The silence stretched on. I felt tears forming in her eyes, strange clear fluid that her people shed only in moments of absolute despair. She had failed. She had come to the center of galactic civilization, to the most powerful beings in existence, and she had failed to save her world. Then from the back of the chamber, a hand rose. I turned to see a human male standing. He was seated in the section reserved for minor powers, the species that had only recently achieved, the ones who did not matter in the grand calculations of galactic politics. He was average height, with soft skin and fragile bones, nothing impressive about him at all. The nameplate before his seat read Ambassador Daniel Cooper, United Earth Coalition. "Earth will help," he said. For a moment there was complete silence. Then the laughter started. The delegate made a series of clicking sounds that needed no translation. The representative hissed something to his aide. Even the usually dignified Sylvan seemed to vibrate with amusement. "The humans," they said when he had composed himself. "Ambassador Cooper, please, this is not the time for jokes." "I am not joking," Cooper said. He did not seem bothered by the laughter. His voice was calm, almost pleasant. "They have asked for help. Earth is willing to provide it." "With what?" They gestured dismissively with one armored limb. "Your species has been spacefaring for barely 2 centuries. Your fleet is, 40 ships? 50. The command over 800 warships. Your technology is generations behind any major power. Your weapons are primitive. Your shields are barely functional." 43 ships, Cooper corrected, "and our technology does what we need it to do. You would send your entire fleet against the. You would throw away every ship and every life your species has committed to space exploration. For what? A gesture. A noble death." Cooper smiled. It was a strange expression, a thought. Humans made this face when they were happy, she knew, but there was something else in it now. Something she did not quite understand. "We would send our fleet to help people who are dying," Cooper said. "That seems like a good enough reason to us." The shook his head. "Human irrationality never ceases to amaze me. Very well. If you wish to sacrifice yourselves for a doomed cause, the Council will not stop you. But do not expect us to rescue you when your fleet is destroyed." "We don't expect anything from the Council," Cooper said. "We never have." He turned to Ambassador, "Do you accept our offer of assistance? I should be honest with you. We're not the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. We're not even close, but we will fight for your people. We will do everything we can." Studied him. She had read the intelligence reports on humans during her time at the Council. They were a young species, barely out of their own solar system. Their ships were ugly, functional things without grace or elegance. Their weapons were based on principles that other species had abandoned long ago. They were considered a minor curiosity, a species that might amount to something in a few thousand years if they survived that long. But they were the only ones offering to help. "We accept," she said, with deep gratitude. Cooper nodded. "Our fleet can be in space within 6 days. I suggest you prepare your people for our arrival. And Ambassador," he paused, "tell them to hold on, help is coming." After the session ended, found Cooper in the corridor outside the chamber. She needed to understand. "Ambassador," she said, "I must ask you something. Your fleet cannot defeat the. Every analysis says you will be destroyed. Why are you doing this? Why are you sending your people to die for a species you have never even spoken to before today?" Cooper considered the question for a long moment. "A long time ago on our, there was a nation that stood alone against an enemy that seemed impossible to defeat. Everyone told them they should give up. All the rational analysis said they would lose. But they fought anyway, because some things are worth fighting for even when you cannot win." "What happened to them?" "They won," Cooper smiled again. "Humans are strange that way. We do not always make sense. We do things that seem irrational, foolish, even insane. But we believe that when someone asks for help, you help them. It is as simple as that." He walked away, leaving her alone with her thoughts. She did not know if the humans could save her people. She did not know if their primitive fleet could do anything against the war machine. But for the first time in weeks, she felt something other than despair. She felt hope. It was small, fragile, probably foolish, but it was there. Help was coming. Admiral Hayes stood on the bridge of the UEC Relentless and watched the stars turn into streaks of light. The ship had entered hyperspace, and around it, 42 other vessels had done the same. The entire human fleet was on its way to war. She was 54 years old. She had served in the fleet for 30 years, starting as a young ensign on a patrol ship near Mars. She had seen everything the fleet had to offer, every ship, every weapon, every piece of technology that humanity had built for the void between stars. She knew exactly what they had. It was not much. The Relentless was the flagship, a carrier that could launch 40 fighter craft and carry a crew of 800. It was the largest ship humanity had ever built, and by galactic standards, it was barely worth mentioning. The great carriers of the Alliance species were 10 times its size. They carried weapons that could crack planets and shields that could withstand the heat of a star. Human ships had none of those things. Had read the reports from galactic intelligence services. She knew what other species thought of the human fleet. They called it primitive. They called it outdated. They had a phrase for human ships that translated roughly as metal coffins with engines. They were not entirely wrong. Human shields were weak. They could stop small debris and minor weapons fire, but anything serious would punch right through them. Human weapons were based on kinetic impact and nuclear explosions, technologies that other species had given up centuries ago. Human ships were ugly, all angles and exposed systems, designed for function rather than beauty. But also knew something that the galaxy had not yet learned. Humans were very, very good at war. They had spent thousands of years fighting each other on there. They had developed weapons and tactics and strategies through countless conflicts. They had learned, again and again, that the side with the better technology did not always win. Sometimes the winner was the side that was more stubborn, more creative, more willing to do whatever it took. "Admiral, we will reach space in 5 days," Commander Benjamin Shaw reported. He was her executive officer, a tall man with gray hair and steady hands. "Current intelligence shows the fleet has split into 3 groups. They are attacking 3 different colony worlds at the same time." "Show me," said. The tactical display lit up with a map of the system. 3 habitable planets all under siege. The ships appeared as red dots, hundreds of them swarming around each world like insects around fruit. Their designs were elegant, curved, beautiful in a terrible way. They were predator ships, built to hunt and kill. "How many ships total?" asked. "Approximately 300 confirmed. More may be on the way." 300 against 43. Did the math in her head. It was not good math. "What do we know about their tactics?" Lieutenant Commander Rachel stepped forward. She was the tactical officer, young but brilliant, with a mind that could process battlefield data faster than most computers. "They prefer overwhelming force. They arrive with superior numbers, destroy enemy fleets, then eliminate ground resistance from orbit. They do not negotiate. They do not accept surrender. They simply kill until there is nothing left to kill." "Weaknesses?" "Their shields are designed to stop energy weapons. Plasma beams, laser arrays, particle cannons. Standard galactic military technology." Rachel paused. "They have never encountered kinetic weapons or nuclear warheads in combat. Our analysts believe they may not even recognize our weapons as a threat until they are hit." Allowed herself a small smile. "So they do not know what to expect from us." "No one in the galaxy knows what to expect from us, Admiral. We have never fought a major fleet battle against another species. They think we are harmless." "Good, let them think that." She turned to look out the main viewport. The stars continued to streak past, blue and white and ancient. Somewhere ahead, millions were waiting to die. Somewhere ahead, 300 enemy ships were preparing to destroy everything in their path. And 43 human ships were going to try to stop them. "Send a message to all ships," said. "Tell them to rest while they can. When we arrive, there will be no time for sleep. Tell them to check their weapons, their systems, their emergency procedures. And tell them one more thing." "Yes, Admiral." Turned back to face her crew. They were watching her, waiting for her words. They were afraid she could see it. They knew the odds as well as she did. They knew they were probably going to die. But there was something else in their eyes. Something that had carried humanity through ice ages and plagues and world wars. Something that had pushed them off their planet and into the stars even when everyone said it was impossible. Determination. "Tell them we are not doing this for glory," said. "We are not doing this to make the galaxy respect us. We are doing this because someone asked for help, and helping is what humans do. If we die out there, we die doing something right. That is enough." Shaw nodded and began transmitting the message. Returned her attention to the tactical display. She began studying the formations, looking for weaknesses, for opportunities, for anything that might give her fleet a chance. The enemy had superior numbers, superior technology, superior firepower. By every measure that mattered, the humans should lose. But had read history. She knew that battles were not always decided by numbers and technology. Sometimes they were decided by surprise, by creativity, by sheer stubborn refusal to accept defeat. They expected to face enemies who fought like other galactic species. They expected neat formations and predictable tactics. They expected enemies who would stand and die with dignity. They had no idea what was coming. Human warfare was not neat. It was not dignified. It was messy and chaotic and brutal. Humans did not fight fair. They used every trick, every advantage, every dirty tactic they could think of. They had learned these lessons in blood over thousands of years. Now they were going to teach those lessons to the galaxy. "Admiral," Shaw said quietly, standing beside her, "do you really think we can win this?" Considered the question carefully. "I think we can hurt them. I think we can make them pay for every ship they have. I think we can give the chance." "And us, what chance do we have?" Looked at her executive officer. She could lie to him. She could offer false hope, comfortable words, but they had served together for too long for that. "We have whatever chance we make for ourselves," she said. "That is how it has always been for humans. No one gives us anything. We take what we need, we build what we want, and we fight for what we believe in. The galaxy thinks we are weak because our technology is primitive. They are wrong. Our technology is primitive. Our people are not." Shaw nodded slowly. "Then I suppose we will show them what humans are made of." "Yes," said, "we will." The fleet continued on through hyperspace, 43 ships carrying the hopes of two species. Behind them lay Earth, humanity's home, fragile and beautiful and worth protecting. Ahead lay the unknown, enemy ships and uncertain odds and probable death. And in between, flying through the darkness, were the humans. Primitive, outdated, underestimated, and completely unwilling to give up. Stood in the command center of the last defense platform. Through the massive windows, she could see her below, blue and green and beautiful. She could also see the ships, dozens of them, circling like predators waiting to strike. The platform was all that remained of orbital defenses. The shipyards were gone, reduced to twisted metal and floating debris. The defensive satellites had been silenced one by one. The shield generators were failing, their power reserves nearly empty. Everything her people had built over centuries of progress had been destroyed in a matter of weeks. And now the end was coming. "Ambassador," one of the technicians called out. His voice shook with exhaustion and fear. "We are detecting incoming vessels, human signatures, 43 ships." A move to the sensor display, her heart's beating faster. The human fleet had arrived exactly when Ambassador Cooper had promised. They dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation, their angular ships appearing against the stars like a formation of metal birds. They looked so small. Compared to the warships, with their elegant curves and gleaming hulls, the human vessels looked almost pathetic. They were gray and functional, covered in exposed pipes and antenna arrays. They had none of the grace or beauty of advanced galactic technology. They looked like machines built by a species that did not yet understand how things were supposed to work. They noticed them immediately. Watched the sensor data as the enemy fleet began to react. Ships turned away from their bombardment positions, reorienting to face this new arrival. She could imagine the confusion on their bridges, the disbelief. Human ships, here. What could possibly have possessed them to come? "They are moving to intercept," the technician reported. "They are bringing approximately 300 ships to bear on the human fleet." 300 against 43. Felt sick. She had hoped foolishly that perhaps the humans had some secret weapon, some hidden technology that would even the odds. But looking at their fleet, she saw nothing special. Just ugly ships and crude weapons and what appeared to be certain death. "Open a communication channel to the human flagship," she ordered. The screen flickered and Admiral Hayes appeared. She was calm, almost relaxed, as if she were sitting down for a pleasant conversation rather than facing impossible odds. Her gray hair was pulled back and her eyes were steady and clear. "Ambassador," Hayes said, "we made it. What is the current situation? Desperate, admitted. She saw no point in lying. They have destroyed most of our defensive capabilities. Our remaining ships are scattered across the system, unable to form any meaningful resistance. Your fleet is all that stands between the enemy and our. Hayes nodded as if this was expected. Then we will have to make do. Ambassador, I need you to do something important. Get your remaining civilians into underground shelters, deep underground as far as possible. Tell them to stay there no matter what they see or hear. Can you do that? Yes, but Admiral, I hesitated. Surely you are not planning to engage directly. The numbers, the firepower difference. It would be suicide. We are aware of the odds. You will all die. Hayes smiled that strange human smile. Maybe, but dying is not the same as losing, and we have no intention of losing. Before I could respond, another alert sounded throughout the command center. The flagship was broadcasting on an open channel, a message intended for the human fleet. The translated voice was cold and harsh. Human vessels, you have entered operational space. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed. This is your only warning. You have one opportunity to flee with your lives. There will be no second chance. Hayes looked at someone off-screen. Put me through. A moment later, her voice carried across the void, reaching every ship in both fleets. Commander, this is Admiral Hayes of the United Earth Coalition. We are here in response to a request for humanitarian assistance from the people. They have asked for our help, and we intend to provide it. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was harder. You have one opportunity to withdraw your forces from this system. Take it. There will be no second warning. Silence followed. I stared at the display, unable to believe what she had just heard. The humans were threatening with 43 ships against 300. It was insane. It was suicide. It was the most incredible act of courage she had ever witnessed. The response came after a long moment, and even through the translator, I could hear the amusement in it. Human Commander, your species is unknown to us. Your threats are meaningless. Your ships are primitive curiosities. Your weapons are children's toys. You will be destroyed in moments, but we appreciate your courage. We will make your deaths quick. Hayes did not seem bothered by the words. We have heard that before, from better enemies than you. You compare us to others. We have conquered 100 worlds. We have destroyed 1,000 fleets. What are you? A minor species, barely out of your home system, playing at war with ships that would not survive 5 minutes against real warships. Then you have nothing to worry about, Hayes said. Why not let us go? Why waste weapons on ships that are not a threat? The commander paused. When he spoke again, there was something different in his voice. Not quite uncertainty, but something close to it. You are attempting to manipulate me, human. It will not work. Prepare to die. The channel closed. Hayes turned back to Ambassador, get your people to shelter. Now, this is about to get very loud. The channel closed, and I watched as the human fleet began to move. They did not form the neat battle lines she expected. They did not arrange themselves into defensive formations. Instead, they scattered, spreading out across space in what looked like complete chaos. The fleet advanced, 300 ships moving as one, their weapons charging, their shields fully powered. They were beautiful and terrible, a wave of destruction that no force in the galaxy could stop. And flying toward them, alone and outnumbered and completely outmatched, were 43 human ships. I gave the order to begin evacuating civilians to underground shelters. She did not know what was about to happen. She did not understand what the humans were planning, but she had seen something in Admiral Hayes's eyes, something that gave her pause. It was not fear, it was not resignation, it was something else entirely. It was the look of someone who knew exactly what they were doing. The opened fire, and the battle began. I watched the tactical display as energy beams crossed the void, brilliant lines of death reaching for the human ships. She expected to see explosions, debris, the quick and brutal end of humanity's foolish intervention. Instead, she saw the human ships scatter. They moved in random patterns, unpredictable and chaotic, and the weapons found nothing but empty space. The humans were not fighting like any species she had ever seen. They were fighting like something new, something dangerous, something that might just change everything. The first attack struck nothing. Admiral Hayes watched the tactical display as enemy energy beams sliced through the space where her ships had been moments before. They had fired expecting neat formations, expecting their targets to behave like every other species they had ever fought. They expected discipline and order. What they got was chaos. The human fleet had scattered at the last possible moment, each ship moving independently, following patterns that looked random but were actually the result of thousands of hours of training. It was ugly. It was ungraceful. It was completely unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen in space combat. And it worked. First attack missed, Commander Shaw reported, his voice tight with tension. They are adjusting their targeting systems. They will need more than adjustments, said. All ships, begin attack run. Show them what Earth learned from 5,000 years of killing each other. The human fleet surged forward. They did not move in formation. Each captain made their own decisions, reading the battle, finding gaps in the enemy lines, taking opportunities as they appeared. It was the opposite of galactic military doctrine, which emphasized coordination and unified command. But humans had learned their warfare in different conditions. They had fought in jungles and deserts and frozen wastelands. They had learned that sometimes the best plan was no plan at all, just well-trained people making good decisions under pressure. The destroyer escort Madison was the first to score a hit. Her captain, Lieutenant Commander Gregory, had taken his small ship dangerously close to the flagship, using the massive enemy vessel's own bulk as cover from supporting fire. At point-blank range, he launched everything he had. Mass driver rounds, metal slugs accelerated to incredible speeds, slammed into the shields. These shields had been designed to disperse energy weapons, to absorb the heat of plasma beams and scatter the light of lasers. They had never been built to stop physical objects traveling at a significant fraction of light speed. The rounds punched through as if the shields did not exist. They tore into the flagship's hull, ripping through armor and systems and crew spaces. Then came the nuclear warheads, following the path the kinetic rounds had opened. They had never encountered nuclear weapons in space. Their point defense systems did not recognize the missiles as serious threats. They were designed to stop plasma torpedoes and guided energy packets, not simple explosive devices carried by rockets. The warheads detonated inside the flagship's port section. The explosion was silent in the void of space, but the results were spectacular. The entire port side of the massive ship simply ceased to exist, replaced by expanding debris and venting atmosphere. The flagship tumbled, its engines flickering, its weapons going dark. Across the battlefield, similar scenes were playing out. Human ships dove through the formation like predators among prey. They got close, dangerously close, negating the enemy's shield advantage through sheer recklessness. They fired kinetic rounds and nuclear warheads and missiles packed with explosives. They used every dirty trick in the human arsenal. The destroyer Lincoln used an asteroid as cover, hiding behind the spinning rock until 3 cruisers had passed, then emerging to fire into their unshielded rear sections. The frigate Constitution launched decoys that mimicked engine signatures, drawing enemy fire while the real ship circled around for a killing shot. The carrier Relentless deployed fighters that swarmed enemy vessels like angry insects, distracting point defense systems while the main weapons found their targets. And when the ammunition ran out, when the weapons went dry, the humans did not stop fighting. Captain Sandra Marsh of the destroyer found herself facing a cruiser with empty magazines and failing shields. Her ship was dying, systems sparking, hull breached in a dozen places. Any sane captain would have tried to retreat, to save what crew she could. Instead, she aimed her ship at the cruiser's engine section and accelerated to maximum speed. The collision destroyed both vessels. Captain Marsh and her crew died in an instant of fire and metal, but so did the 300 crew members aboard the cruiser. It was a trade the humans were willing to make. The battle raged for 3 hours. Watched it all from the bridge of the Relentless, giving orders when needed, trusting her captains when they did not need guidance. She saw human ships die, saw brave men and women vanish in flashes of light, saw escape pods launched into the chaos of battle with little hope of rescue. She also saw ships die, more than she had expected, far more than anyone would have predicted. "Enemy fleet is breaking up," Rachel reported. Her voice was hoarse from hours of calling out targets and tracking enemy movements. "They are trying to reform into smaller groups, but their command structure is damaged. The flagship is barely functional." "Our losses?" asked. 12 ships destroyed, 8 more heavily damaged, limited combat capability. Crew casualties estimated at over 2,000. Felt the weight of those numbers. 2,000 lives, 12 ships, nearly half their fleet gone in 3 hours. And the confirmed kills on 47 enemy vessels. Another 60 showing significant damage. They started with 300. They now have approximately 200 effective combat ships. 43 human ships had destroyed 47 warships and damaged 60 more. The numbers were still against them, but the gap had narrowed. "Admiral," the communications officer said, "we are receiving a transmission from the fleet. They are requesting a ceasefire." Raised an eyebrow. "They want to talk now." "It appears so." She considered for a moment, then nodded. "Let them through." The commander appeared on screen. He was reptilian, covered in dark scales, with cold eyes that had probably watched countless species die. But there was something new in his expression now, something that had not been there before the battle began. "Fear." "Human commander," he said, "your tactics are unprecedented. Your weapons are unlike anything we have encountered. I am prepared to offer terms." "Terms?" Leaned forward in her chair. 3 hours ago you promised to destroy us in moments. You said our ships were primitive curiosities. You said we were playing at war." "I was mistaken." "Yes, you were." Let the silence stretch. "What terms are you offering?" "Withdrawal. We will leave this system and not return. In exchange, you will cease hostilities and allow our damaged vessels to retreat safely." Thought about it. She thought about the waiting in underground shelters. She thought about the millions of lives that still hung in the balance. She thought about the 2,000 humans who had already died to reach this moment. "Full withdrawal from all space," she said. "Every colony world, every station, everything. You take your ships and you leave and you do not come back. Ever." "That is acceptable." "There is one more thing," stood facing the screen directly. "You came here thinking we were weak. You came here thinking we were primitive and harmless and beneath your notice. You were wrong. Remember that. Tell your government, tell your people, tell everyone you meet. The humans may not have the best technology. We may not have the biggest fleets, but we do not abandon those who ask for our help, and we do not lose." The commander stared at her for a long moment. Then slowly he nodded. "I will remember, human. I will remember." The channel closed. On the bridge of the Relentless, Commander Shaw let out a breath he had been holding for what felt like hours. "They are actually leaving. They are retreating." Watched the display as the fleet began to pull back. Damaged ships limped toward the edge of the system, survivors forming protective formations around them. 300 ships, reduced to just over 200 in 3 hours of fighting against an enemy they had thought would be easy prey. 43 human ships against 300 warships. And humanity had won. Send a message to Ambassador said quietly. Tell her that her people are safe. They are leaving. She sat back down in her command chair and allowed herself a small moment of relief. They had done it. Against all odds, against every prediction, against the laughter of the entire galaxy, they had done it. But the cost had been high, and this was only the beginning. The galaxy was watching now. Everything would be different from this moment forward. The news spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. In the Great Hall of the Galactic Council, delegates gathered around displays showing footage of the battle. The images were grainy, captured by sensors from orbit, but they were clear enough. Human ships, ugly and primitive, tearing through the formation. Nuclear fire blooming against shields that had never been designed to stop it. A fleet that should have been destroyed in minutes fighting for hours and winning. The delegate watched in complete silence. His mandibles did not click. His compound eyes did not move from the screen. For the first time in anyone's memory, he had nothing to say. The Sylvan representative hummed with a frequency that translated roughly to deep concern. The watched with ancient, calculating eyes, already adjusting their assessments of the young human species. Ambassador Daniel Cooper sat in his usual seat at the back of the chamber, his expression neutral, as if nothing particularly interesting had happened. "This changes nothing," the declared finally, breaking the long silence. The humans were fortunate. They caught the by surprise with their unusual tactics. In a sustained conflict, their losses would be catastrophic. Their technology is still primitive. And yet they won, the Sylvan said, against a force 7 times their size, using weapons and tactics we considered obsolete. Crude weapons, dirty tactics, nothing that could threaten a proper Alliance fleet. Cooper spoke up, his voice mild and pleasant. Is that a challenge or just wishful thinking? The turned, his massive armored body rotating to face the human ambassador. You would threaten the Alliance. Not at all. We have no quarrel with the Alliance. We have no quarrel with anyone, really. We came to this chamber asking only to be left alone, to develop at our own pace, to find our own place in the galaxy. Cooper stood slowly, straightening his jacket. But I would think carefully before dismissing what you saw today. And what exactly did we see? You saw humans doing what humans have always done, fighting for people who cannot fight for themselves, refusing to accept that the strong should crush the weak simply because they can. Cooper looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of every delegate. We are not a threat to anyone who does not make themselves our enemy, but we are also not going to stand by while innocent people are slaughtered. Noble words, they said, but words mean nothing without power to back them. We just demonstrated our power. You watched it happen. Cooper walked toward the exit. They are under our protection now. Anyone who threatens them threatens us. I hope that message is clear. He left the chamber without waiting for a response. On Prime, the celebration was mixed with mourning. Ambassador stood among the ruins of her capital city, watching human medical teams tend to wounded civilians. The humans had arrived within hours of the battle's end, their ships loaded with supplies and their crews trained in treating a dozen different species. They asked for nothing in return. They simply helped because helping was needed. Admiral Hayes approached her, looking exhausted but content. She had dark circles under her eyes, and her uniform was wrinkled from days without sleep. But there was something satisfied in her expression, the look of someone who had done a hard thing well. Your people are incredible, I said softly. We thought you came to die with us. Instead, you saved us. We came because you asked, Hayes said simply. That is what neighbors do. Neighbors, Earth is hundreds of light years away. Distance does not matter, connection does. Hayes looked up at the sky, where the last traces of battle debris were still visible as faint streaks of light. The galaxy is a big place, Ambassador, too big for anyone to face alone. We spent 200 years being told we were too primitive, too backward, too weak to matter. Maybe that is true by some standards, but we decided a long time ago that strength is not just about technology or numbers. It is about character. It is about showing up when someone needs you. Considered this. The Alliance species speak of you with contempt. They call you primitive, backwards children playing with dangerous toys. And maybe we are compared to them, but those primitive ships just defeated those backwards weapons just saved you, and those children are right now treating your wounded, sharing their supplies, rebuilding your infrastructure. Hayes smiled. Let them call us whatever they want. We know what we are. And what is that? Human, nothing more, nothing less. In the years that followed, the galaxy learned what that word meant. Human ships began patrolling the borders of vulnerable systems, protecting species that could not protect themselves. Human diplomats spoke up in council chambers for the powerless and the forgotten. Human scientists shared their knowledge freely, even with those who had once laughed at them. They remained primitive by galactic standards. Their technology never quite caught up to the major powers. Their ships stayed ugly, angular things that looked like they had been designed by committee. Their weapons continued to shock and horrify military academies across known space. But they made a difference. When they tried to rebuild their forces 10 years later, they found human ships waiting at every border. When they attempted to pressure a minor species into unfavorable trade agreements, human diplomats intervened. When a plague struck the Sylvan, human medical teams were the first to arrive with aid. The galaxy had called them primitive. The galaxy had called them weak. The galaxy had laughed at their ugly ships and their crude weapons and their strange belief that everyone deserved protection. No one was laughing anymore. Lived for another 2 centuries, serving as the ambassador to Earth for most of that time. She watched humanity grow and change, watched them make mistakes and learn from them, watched them struggle with their own nature as they took their place among the stars. She was asked once, near the end of her life, what she thought of humans. She considered the question for a long time before answering. "They are strange," she said finally. "They are stubborn and irrational and sometimes foolish. They rush into danger without thinking. They fight battles they cannot win and somehow win them anyway. They believe things that make no logical sense, like the idea that helping strangers is worth dying for." "That sounds like criticism," the interviewer said. "It sounds like criticism," agreed. "But it is not. When my people were dying, when every logical analysis said we were doomed, when the great powers of the galaxy turned away and left us to our fate, the humans came. They came with their lame fleet and their primitive weapons and their impossible courage, and they saved us." She paused, remembering that day so long ago when a single human hand had risen in the council chamber. "The galaxy needed something new," she said. "Something that did not calculate the cost of helping before deciding whether to help. Something that believed in doing the right thing simply because it was right. The humans gave us that. They gave us hope." And what did they ask in return? Smiled, an expression she had learned from her many years among humans. "Nothing," she said. "They asked for nothing, they never do. That is what makes them human." In the vastness of space, among the countless stars and civilizations, humanity had found its place. Not as conquerors or rulers or masters of the galaxy, just as neighbors, just as friends, just as people who showed up when others needed help. It was enough. It had always been enough.